I started out by wanting to do a battery capacity test, but that led to so much more. Let's talk about balancing your AGM battery bank or lead acid, whatever. We don't have battery specific BMSs, so it's a little trickier. If that interests you, stick around. This is actually the second attempt at this video. I started by doing just a straight capacity test. We had good weather, it was about 70 degrees, which is when you want to do a capacity test on lead acid, any lead acid chemistry, because the capacity is based on temperature. The warmer it is, you get more capacity. The colder it is, you get less capacity. That's the way it is. So actually at 90 degrees or 100 degrees, you'll actually get more than 100% capacity. It does degrade the batteries faster. There's trade-offs. Anyway, so started doing that, but what I found was one side of my battery bank, because it's a 24 volt system, the bottom or top half, I forget which, it started diving real quick at about 60% stated capacity or calculated capacity. And it hadn't been cycled too hard, so I don't know if I was getting partial charges for a while over the winter or what, but one side of my bank was dying really quick. It was down to under 11 volts. That led me to wanting to get this battery bank in a state of balance, not only just in voltages, but actual capacity. And that's what I'm going to be focusing on today. And hopefully, if all things go well, we'll get a capacity test out of it. So what my plan is going to be is to drain the battery bank down to a lower state of charge, something like 70% maybe, and then remove all the connections and take a measurement there, because I was doing some reading, and what I found was that with these Telecom batteries, once they've been in service for a number of years, the voltage, the resting voltage at the top of the state of charge is not representative of their capacity. So that's my plan, and we're going to get to it here. I do want to share a couple other modifications I made to the battery bank as well. So as usual, I do recommend checking all of your terminal connections because they do tend to loosen up with thermal heat and contraction cycles. So I did that, did find a couple of loose ones, sanded down a couple of these connections. And this was another big change I made. So this is like I said, this is a 24 volt bank. What I did was I tied all the center points together. And before I was using this little wire here. I don't know what gauge is this. This is, well, pretty small. I don't know, 16, 8, something like that. Not really big enough, I don't think. I didn't think it would be a big deal, but I have found differences between the middle cell voltage on the ends. And I'm doing everything I can to try and keep everything in balance by running equal length wires to a central bus bar. That's why I've got all these wires around here. But anyway, I beefed up my center balance wire, but you know, it's only doing so much. So now I've just drilled and tapped into the connecting bus bar. I think that's a little bit better. And we do run a Victron battery balancer, but it does not, it's very limited on amps, on what it can actually do. It works over time, but I think I've got a bigger problem here. And now, before we get all the comments of, you know, lithium ion is the way to go, 100% agree. 100% agree with you. But if you remember a video we did a couple years ago, this battery bank was not about a forever solution. This battery bank was about buying time. And I will say, I think my opinion on that was bore out. Right now, I've been watching these. You can buy from Alibaba these 280 amp hour, 3 volt cells. Everybody's buying them. You know, it doesn't take too much research to find it. You can build a 280 amp hour, 12 volt battery for about $500 with a BMS. That's what, a quarter of the cost? No, a quarter to a third the cost, I think. Check my math. Anyway, of like a Battleborn. I mean, and you can build it all yourself. You can swap out a cell if you want. So prices on lithium are just dropping, and this battery bank really probably only needs to last us about another year, and we'll probably be onto a lithium as well. The thing I do like about it is it works all weather. 20 below, 30 below, it works. I love that, because we don't use it probably in 20, 30 below, but you've seen, we've been out on this bus well below zero. That's how we roll. Let's get a load on this and start to discharge it, and we'll go from there. To start out, I'm going to turn on the water heater, and that should bring the capacity down quite a bit. Then I'll start with an electric heater, and that should provide a nice consistent load, and we'll just monitor it. And then at that point, we'll just pick a point where I'm maybe starting to see some deviation in top and bottom, and then we can disconnect all the batteries and measure the voltages of the cells individually, and maybe be able to match weaker ones together and stronger ones together so that they stay in balance longer. So that is the plan. So you can see we're at 100% here, and that is the difference in the top and bottom right now. That will change, of course, as we continue to apply a load and all that. Let's see what happens. Water heater is on, and we're probably getting some help from shore power, which I need to disconnect. Yeah, I'll go do that. All right, now we're pulling some good watts. Let's just take some measurements here. So let's go from the center. So bottom side, 12.72, 12.71. Let's measure top on that same cell, 12.65. So there still is a difference, but it's not nearly as bad as what it showed up there. And the reason for that is the way the shunt measures and calculates the deviation. 12.68 bottom, 12.65 top. I'm just going along the side here. 12.71. So there are some pretty big differences here. What do we got here? 12.65 on the top on that one. 12.69, 12.70 on the bottom of one. 12.65 or 12.64 on the top. The deviation that I was talking about earlier, which led to this whole project, I measured with my voltmeter at the batteries, and that's what I really recommend doing. The midpoint tracking on the BMV is great, but verify it. Definitely verify it. So the other thing I need to do is actually turn off the solar chargers, and I can do that through the Victron Connect app. So we're going to do that, and we're just going to let this run for a while. Little update here. It has been a little over an hour, and we made all the hot water we could. And this is what the voltage discharge curve looks like, and I'm pretty happy with that. And then we stopped making water, and I was distracted, and I had a little bit of solar kicking in because before we were pulling like 120 amps, and I didn't really want to be thrashing the batteries that much. So I left one solar charger on, and it's pretty cloudy, so it wasn't producing much. But when that did turn off, it did start to charge up just a tick. And then I turned on a heater and both of the AC fans, and we're seeing that discharge again. And this time we're discharging at about 86 amps. Once again, the Victron VRM is so nice to diagnose and track all this stuff. See, our battery temperature has gone up a little bit. That's good, because I would rather be doing this closer to 20, but this is what we have to work with. We will continue to monitor this and check in again in a little bit. All right, it's been some time, And I think last time we were talking, we were about here in the process. Now we're starting to see the deviation slow down. So what that to me is telling me is we're starting to get some imbalance now, because when we were here, we were pretty close to matched, even though it shows different. And probably somewhere around here we were actually equal, and now we're starting to get out of balance the other way. I'm still going to let it run for a while. We've consumed 208 amp hours so far, and our voltages are not horrible. We're going to keep running this here. The red banner here up at the top means that we have hit the midpoint voltage alarm. So I think it's probably time to end this part of this experiment here. Here is the data for what's been going on here. As you can see, it really has been dropping off here pretty quick. We were, about even there for a while, but the top side has just continued to plummet, and now we are at over 3% deviation, and the top is down to 11.21 volts. The top is still well above 12, and again, that is under 100 amp load. Remember that the amperage continues to increase as the volts decreases. So, and actually we're down to looks like 11.13. So we should get out there, take some real measurements, and see what's going on before we cause any real issues. All right, let's take some voltage readings, huh? I did, full disclosure, I did remove the AC fans from the load just because the voltage was dropping way too fast. So here's bottom is at 12.34. And the amps are about 70 right now. And let's take a look at the top of that same battery. And it's at 11.27. So almost a full volt different between top and bottom. Well, I have my work cut out for me now. I'm going to disconnect everything from the bus bars, and then I'll probably run just a jumper cable to some external AGM batteries I have here, just to keep everything inside the coach powered. And we'll get a reading on each of the batteries. I might even mark them and identify them so we can keep track of which battery is doing what. And then we'll try and match the batteries up with their nearest neighbor as far as resting voltage. Now we should wait a lot longer than I'm going to, but I just want to do a quick reconfigure, then we'll charge them all night, and we'll see what happens. Well, good morning everybody. It's been a couple of days now, and with that I came up with a plan of how to figure out which batteries are good and which batteries are bad. And the good news is I only found 2 bad ones. And what I ended up using is this little Suntech digital battery analyzer from Harbor Freight. It worked really well. And I found 2 batteries that had a very high internal resistance. And generally that means they are either at the top of their charge or at the bottom of their charge. So, or they're just bad. But because they were holding a normal voltage when charged, they're just lacking some capacity or something. I don't think that they are, worthless, but we do want to work with them. So what my plan is to take those 2 batteries, and it's the 4th one in here and then the 6th one in. Those 2 are the weak ones. This little one here, much more weak than that one. So I'm planning on taking both of those together and basically limiting this entire battery bank to just those 2, and I'm going to cycle it to see, one, what the capacity is and if we can improve that by cycling them. Some people might say that cycling lead acid batteries does not restore capacity. I just watched a video last night, a couple of them, from I would say he's probably some sort of electrical engineer, but ran some tests where he was able to restore some batteries just like this to nearly 100% capacity. And that is really exciting, so we are going to try that. A little update here. I've ran a couple of tests, or we've done a couple of cycles running just those two batteries, and we're not getting much power out of them. I got about 20 amp hours out of, even at 50% capacity, we should be getting like 75, 80. Now, temperature wise right now, it is about, the batteries are about 8 degrees. So this isn't ideal, but we should be getting more than that. On that 20 amp hour draw, I was pulling it at a pretty good rate. We were getting 40 amps per hour out of it. So it only lasted about a little over 30 minutes. And I just did another one at a lower rate of 27 amps, and I only got 19 amp hours out of both of them that time. I did do a pretty quick recharge, so that had something to do with it, but I'm going to keep cycling them. I don't really feel like I can hurt things at this point. So we might just have two bad batteries, and we'll go from there. I reconnected the entire battery bank. Then, using the Suntech battery analyzer, I took readings for the cold cranking amps as well as the internal resistance of each battery. Since I was going to be moving the cells around, I labeled each A through J so I could track these readings. Using this information, I matched each battery with one that closely matched those resistance and cold cranking amp numbers as best I could. I hoped this would keep the battery bank in balance for longer to pull more capacity from the healthier cells. All right, it has been a couple of days and the weather has warmed up, so we are running another cycle. I did rearrange the batteries like we talked about, and I found a couple of things. So the first thing I want to talk about here is on my negative bus bar here, running to the shunt. I was noticing I was getting, we're still getting almost a half a volt drop from here to there. So that is really throwing off our deviation number, which currently is at 1.8%, which is pretty high. And then the actual voltage of the battery bank is 24.35, but this is saying, what's it saying now? Yeah, it's the amps. 24.11. That's what the shunt here is reading. There's just a big drop. I was also finding I was not getting really any connectivity from one of my negative wires. I'm actually running two of these black cables to the negative shunt there. So I cleaned that up and that improved things quite a bit. But then the other thing I'm noticing is this battery that I've labeled F here. It is not in good shape at all. All right, so that battery labeled F, that one is actually 11.95 volts. Its top one is 12.38. That's a pretty big difference. But if we come to somewhere else in the bank here, let's try, batteries, some of the smaller ones, 12.05 versus on the top side, 12.27. That's a pretty big difference. And again, we are under about 100 amps of load here. Then this is a bottom battery, 12.13, and its top pair, 12.20. Those aren't too far away at all. So we've got some good pairs, some bad pairs. What I may do is pull this one out and cycle it independently so I don't have to cycle everything. But with that in mind, I'm going to monitor the health of this one, and if it gets down to 11 volts flat, I will pull it out and then let the rest of the bank keep discharging, just so I can cycle everything and get a good idea of where we're at. Because when I've done the cycling thus far, it's always been one side of the bank has been dropping off way sooner than the other side, so I haven't been able to really bring the entire bank all the way down. I don't know exactly how much capacity I have. The best I've gotten so far is about 315 or so, I think, amp hours. Hoping to get that number up to at least 500-600 ideally, but we're just gonna have to keep trying. We are moving in the right direction, so that's good. All right, here's something else interesting that I found. I know this says their 1.9% deviation, but it was actually up as far as 2.1%. And what I had and did is I connected a jumper cable from the midpoint on this battery, because these two are pretty healthy, to the midpoint over here to help out this other one, and that's exactly where my sensor is. And it dropped it a whole 2 points, or whatever, 2 fractions of a point on the deviation. So what that is actually telling me is my balance wire here, even though I upgraded it from, you know, these little, where's one here? These little tiny wires that I had before, I think I may need to go even bigger if I really need true balancing across all of these. I think that'll about wrap up this mega episode. We're not done with this yet, obviously. We're going to keep cycling this bank because it continues to show improvement. I don't see why not. We don't have a lot to lose. Definitely post your comments below with what you're thinking. Last thing I want to say is this could also apply to 6-volt golf cart batteries. You know, if you're running a 12-volt system or even a 24-volt system or higher with golf cart batteries, those can get out of balance as well. And you can have your overall system voltage drop, and you might not have all of your batteries are bad. You might just have one that needs some conditioning. Who knows? So maybe this can help you. Feel free to share it to anybody that might be suffering from issues like this. And yeah, thanks for coming along on this ride. Catch you next time when we continue to work on this. Coco has to say hi to everybody. Yep, she sees you. Yep, she sees you waving. Coco says hi. Oh, gotta get in there and get that tummy rub, right? Yeah. Say bye, Coco. Bye, everybody. Bye. What? What? Yeah. You can't wait to go camping, can you? Yeah.